It's another great word on the street with none other than over 30 years. What a celebrated career. Amazing
Mm.
singer, artist, over 24 solo recordings, 7 number one hits. And now he's doing a remake that even Kenny Loggins likes better than his own version. It's Charles Billingsley. How you doing, Charles?
I'm doing great, Brent. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Oh
It's
man,
good to be with you.
hey, it's great to have you, Charles. You're no stranger to the music
Mm.
scene. My gosh, over 3,000 concerts. You're on a tour right now. It's sold out. Man, what a great artist. And I almost thought, well, I might call him the Michael Bublé of Christian music, but no, I think it's better than that. And
Oh man,
yeah,
those are big
man.
words, bro. Michael's
Well,
pretty awesome at what
well,
he does.
I've seen your face before, Charles, and you know what's really cool is that you've definitely made your mark not only in the Christian music industry, but just the music industry. You know, when I talk to
Mhm.
friends like John Schlitt or others, and there's either good music or bad music. Anymore it
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be Christian or non. It just hey, if people like it and it's great music,
Hmm.
then it's great music. Folks, go to charlesbillingsley.com and you'll be able to see a great website, be able to read about him, be able to listen to his music. He's even got a great podcast and a shop where you can buy t-shirts and books about worship and more. And your podcast hits some heavy hitting topics. But what we're talking about today is tell us about this Kenny Loggins remake that he loves and Celebrate Me Home, I believe.
It is, man. I mean, first of all, Brant, I've always loved that song. I'm kind of that era. Kenny's one generation before me. He's in his upper 70s now, believe it or not. But growing up in the 80s and listening to all that 80s music, you know, with Top Gun and Footloose
Oh
and all
yeah.
these movies that came out. Like he was the movie themed guy. I mean, like he was
Oh
it,
yeah.
and I loved his music. And then he put out this record called Live in the Redwoods, and I absolutely loved that record. But in the midst of all that Kenny Loggins music that I was listening to, this song, Celebrate Me Home, always just really hit home with me. And goodness, now what, 30 years later, I just decided I want to make a remake of that song. So I called my buddy Scotty Wilbanks, who plays with Luke Bryan now, he's the keyboard player for Luke Bryan, but Scotty produces all kinds of artists, and Scotty and I were together in a group a long time ago in the Christian music world called New Song.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, we were in the group together, and so we decided that we wanted to do this song. And Scotty did something that threw me off a little bit at first. He put it in 4/4, and everybody ever, including Kenny,
Yeah.
who's ever recorded the song, put it in 6/8.
Uh-huh.
But we decided we would get Chris Rodriguez, who has been the MD on the road for Kenny Loggins for like 30 years. We decided we'd ask him to play some acoustic on it and some guitars. So he does, and he falls in love with our version. He sends it to Kenny Loggins, and Kenny loved it. And here's why: because we got a text back from Kenny through Chris. He said, "Man, when I wrote this song, I wrote it in 4/4 time signature."
Whoa.
But Phil Ramone, the very famous producer, he uh, he produced the song for Kenny, and he's the one that changed it to 6/8. So nobody has ever put it in 4/4 before. And so when Kenny heard our version in 4/4, he freaked out, which I had no idea that he wrote it in 4/4. We were just trying to make it different than everybody else's version. And uh, turns out that's the way Kenny originally wanted it. And so
Wow.
he did a nice quote for us and loves our version, and it's really cool. And then to make things even better, Brent, I find out yesterday that Kenny Loggins and I have the same birthday, both January
No
7th. So
way. No way.
yeah. So I really hope to meet him one day. I really do. I have
You
never
know,
met him, but
yeah.
I'm thrilled that he loves our version, and who knows, maybe I'll get to sing it with him one day.
You know what? I have a feeling that you will. I have a feeling you're going to meet him, and I have a feeling that you will. Hey, you know what? There's no coincidences. There's no chance meetings. There's no such
Mm,
thing. Psalm 139. My days were written in your book before I was born. And when you
mm.
realize that your days were already written out, you were destined to meet Kenny. But you think it's a
Maybe
coincidence
so.
that you did that
No.
song in the original timing 4/4, and that you share the same birthday? And of course, hey,
Mhm.
you're a Gen Xer, man, like me. The best music was in the 80s.
Yes.
No matter what anybody
Yes,
says,
yes, yes.
man, you had
No.
Casey and the Sunshine Band still from the 70s,
Oh,
but then you had
come on.
Journey and
Yes.
Earth, Wind
Def
and Fire.
Leppard.
I got to interview my friend Bill Champlin from Chicago. Bill is still amazing.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've ever met Bill or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if you do one of his.
No, I have not.
Well, these
Well, I
these
tell you
people
what, man, I was
talk.
a
Yeah,
huge Chicago fan. I was a huge Chicago fan
yeah.
and would love to do a remake of one of their songs. I mean, good grief. But the problem is Peter Cetera sang so stinking high. I don't know if I could hit those notes.
Well, you know what? I think it's so cool that you're doing what you're doing, and that your shows are sold out. You got a really cool. I mean, of course, fantastic with new song, but you got a classy approach, great voice. I love your rendition of "Celebrate Me Home," folks. You can go to charlesbillingsley.com. You can download that. You can buy that, and as exciting as all that is, I really appreciate what is very clear is your heart for ministry. I mean, even your
Mm,
podcast subjects kind of give a snapshot, that you really care about people. In this world, there's people who love people and use things, and there's people who love things and use
mm.
people. Charles,
Wow.
you love people. One of
Mm,
your podcast topics, and I know we didn't plan on talking about this, but I admire this about you. What do I do when my life is falling apart? You're hitting hard-hitting topics, some great interviews as well.
mm,
And everyone, you need to subscribe and share Charles's podcast as well, because you know what you talk about is what's in your heart, as well as what you sing
mm,
about. But I can tell that you're an artist that cares about your audience, and they know it. That carries on through.
mm.
Tell us about this season of your life. The style and the format, how things maybe have evolved from when you first started.
Well, they certainly have. When I first started, I was what call a typical contemporary Christian musician, and I was just trying to find my way like everybody does, and ended up in that group New Song, and we toured a lot. But interestingly enough, though, I just always felt called to the local church. But really, more than that, I just felt like my communication method was really more in preaching the gospel than it was in singing.
Wow.
And one night I was singing a song up in Canada, and it's like I just very clearly sensed the Lord telling me that, yeah, you're called to preach, but it's going to be through 4-minute messages set to music.
Uh-huh.
And so
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
over the years, that's kind of just been what's determined what songs I sing and how I sing and what we write, but over the last 30 years, with all these concerts and all these events, there's been something nagging inside of me for a long time, and it was this desire to get outside of the church and do some things in the mainstream market that would not be contrary to my testimony,
Right, right.
but at the same time would open the ears and hearts and minds of people who don't know the truth of the gospel. And so I did this jazz record called The Shadow of Your Smile, and we started going into some and working with local symphonies. And I
Okay.
just did one Saturday night with the Irving Symphony in Dallas, and it's the coolest thing, Brant, because a huge part of that crowd are not churchgoers,
Oh yeah.
and yet every song I'm singing is about love and hope and peace and truth, and all of that. Of course, God is the author of, and so I love these opportunities because I'm not going to get up there and preach to them, but every song I'm singing has an element of the gospel in
Yeah.
it. And Christmas makes it that much easier
Oh
because
yeah.
Christmas is the one time I can sing all year long and all night long clearly about the gospel, like Oh Holy Night, Silent Night, but at the same time be unapologetic about it and bold about the reason for the season. And so it's really, really fun. Christmas is also the one time of year where everybody comes out for a Christmas concert. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it's Monday afternoon at 3 in the afternoon or whatever. They just come out. And so it's a blast.
Well, you know,
And
look
so,
how look how God's using you, man. And
oh man.
you're able to be in the marketplace, which by the way, 2025 is a reset. You know, a reset among the seven mountains of influence, you know. And you
Mm.
know, I mean, look what's happened with politics. Talk about a switch.
Yeah.
What's happening with the
Woo.
music industry? Hey, we're tired of looking at Luciferian rituals during the halftime. We want something pure and something good. What's happened in the education system with parents saying enough is enough? It's time for a
Yeah.
change. And you know, I've always admired people who can stand on their own in the world. Don't get me wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. There's
Yeah.
cheesy Jesus, good enough for gospel, and then there is
Uh-huh.
just good because the gospel deserves the best. But you know, from Carnegie Hall to the Kennedy Center, man, you've
Hmm.
sang those venues, and then reaching people who will never grace the doors of a church, but they hear your
Yeah.
rendition of Danny Boy, or you know, it had to be
Hmm.
you, and you know
Hmm.
what, you know, the God is the giver of all good things. You know what? I mean, I could tell you a story sometime about where major key music really came from. Okay.
Hmm.
You know, I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know if you knew that or not, but Melodius or Meloditis, depends on who you subscribe to, was the grandson of the soldier that Jesus raised from the dead at Nain. You know,
Wow.
if you didn't know this, the
I
Roman
did not know that.
check out the Roman Senate Annals in the Vatican, as well as other secular documents. But Maximus Infatius, I'm sorry, Marcus Infatius, was raised from the dead by Jesus, and his grandson had a dream. Jesus said, "Make music worthy of me." And he raised the scale half a step to major music, and that's where we have major music. So whether it's Amazing Grace or It Had to Be You, the author and the finisher of our faith and the giver of good music. That's God. And so, you know, people
I
watch your
didn't know
life.
that.
Isn't that crazy? Most people don't.
That's
Most,
crazy awesome.
you know,
You
the
know,
Van Zant brothers from Leonard Skinner and 38 Special,
yeah.
that blew their mind, but it's
Oh
true.
my God.
It's
Well,
true.
you know what else along those lines, Brant? I just finished an entire message called The Song of the Redeemed. And I went through the very beginning of history, every day of creation. And when you start looking at every aspect of creation, even down to the very smallest of atoms, everything in creation is singing. It's all singing. Even atoms hum on a. I think the note that they hum on is an A. It's
Yep.
higher than the human ear can hear. But everything in creation is singing its praises to the Lord. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Well, you know what, brother? You're awesome. It's so great to meet you, and I hope that we get to do it
You
again.
too.
Keep up with Charles Billingsley, folks. You've seen him before, and a lot of you have heard him too. Maybe you didn't realize, hey, that's a guy from New Song, and now look what he's doing. Well, you know what? I just pray God's success on you, Charles, tenfold in 2025, and all the wonderful things. And you know what? He can trust you, Charles. God can trust you, taking you before kings, before rulers, and championing. And you know what? The command to take dominion never went away. And you're taking dominion in the Christian music space, in the secular music space, which I think all that's erasing. It's just good or bad. It's you know
I think you're right.
when religious people hear music, how religious is it? But when the world hears good music, they're like, hey, that's good music. And I tell you what, I already know that who you are and your music is reaching people that usually the church will never reach. And then, of course, wonderful
Mm.
people, all American people. You know, I'm looking forward to hearing your rendition of America the Beautiful. And you
Oh,
know, I've
God.
read about that too. And you know,
Mhm.
I'm just I get excited when lovers of God, lovers of Jesus, lovers of people succeed in the world because we've been given that command to take dominion. So I pray, Charles, that you take dominion increasingly in 2025. And everyone, before Christmas and even on Christmas, download his music, have it playing when you got the candles going and the eggnog and
Mhm.
Uncle Eddie's visiting, Christmas vacation, drinking the eggnog from the moose cup. Well, have
That's right.
Charles
That's
Billings,
right.
have Charles on.
That's right. I can be the gift that keeps on giving all year long, Clark.
all year long, man. Uh, no, again though, I've seen you before, and I've been blessed to interview so many great artists, and in my mind, I have thought before, man, I wonder what it'd be like to interview that dude, and here it is, man. So,
Oh man.
what
Well,
a
thank you.
privilege and a pleasure to, in good conscience, recommend everybody to go to
Mhm.
charlesbillingsley.com, buy his music, subscribe to his podcast, and get behind this guy in anything that he does. And you're blessed, Charles. So thank you for joining me on Word of the Street.
Thank you, Brant, for having me, man. God bless all you.